And we explained, if you remember, the types of the sunan. We said the universal sunan and the shari'i sunan. Okay? And this is the category of the sunan. And we said the types of the sunan are the natural sunan and the supernatural sunan. The natural sunan and the supernatural sunan, and we explained part of it. We're gonna get to many examples. And we said the universal law is the law that let's say acts or function according to the way of Allah, and no creation or the human being, they don't have any power on it, like the rising of the moon, the rising of the sun, the setting of the sun. These are universal laws. Like when it comes to our life, like the disease in the man, death, calamities, all these are in the universal law. So the man doesn't have any control on it. Yeah. We explained this last time. As-Sunnah Shar'iyya, As-Sunnah Shar'iyya, the Sunnah Shar'iyya, it's the Sunnah, the way. Did you came that far?
Yeah, we passed that.
It's the way that to deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation. And then we came to the fourth or the fifth principle, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made these laws. And the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not change because of us. Will not change because of us. So the sunnah of Allah madiyah, the sunnah of Allah, it will pass. You like it or you don't like it. This is the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's when it comes. If you don't contribute into the achieving of the way of Allah or the establishing of the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth, this is going to happen anyway. And if you don't honor yourself to contribute in it, Allah will bring others. Because it's not based on your effort that the sunnah of Allah will happen. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّوا عَلَيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ. Don't come and tell to Allah, we have a favor on you that you are Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted you with Islam. Because in many mentality of the people of the book, they really believe that they have a favor on God to be on earth. And you see many, so this is a very awkward principle that they have in their belief. And look as a Bayesian principle, you see how they deal with God. He's like secondary, he's like in a second plan. He's there to help them. He's them at their service. He's serving them, not them serving him. And you see it in a lot of their mentality, in a lot of their talk, a lot of their you see sometimes how they argue with their God. Why? Because they feel that they have a favor. It's like God needed them to be on earth. If not, as in the previous book, not the previous book, but in what they changed in the previous book, that God get to be bored. So he needs to do something. And one of the things that he will go and play with the fish in the bottom of the ocean. Is it true what I'm saying? This is in their belief. Therefore, it's like he needs them, not them needing him. So having this breed, this origin, this root, it's really make God to be proud that he had these people. Therefore their existence, their life, it's all what give him this favor to have them. And based on this, look what type of thoughts, what type of thinking what type of action, what type of life will be built based on these thoughts. The law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not that. Allah is the one who favor you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala independent, and Allah ghaniyyun hamid. Ya ayyuha an-nasu antumul fuqara'u ila Allah. This is a sunnah. You are the poorest to Allah. If you don't act in your life like you are the poorest to Allah, you cannot even sense your relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot have khushu'. Because if you feel independent, why you praying to Allah? If you feel independent, why you ask forgiveness from Allah? If you feel independent. But if you really feel that you are poor to Allah, that's when you come back Him into your sujood and insist in your dua. So this is a state that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents us to live our life based on it. And this is in our aqidah. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never change His law because of you. The law of Allah is going to happen. The law of Allah is going to happen. And if you want to contribute in it to have the honor, Allah will bring other, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِن تَتَوَلَّوْا يَسْتَبْدِلْ قَوْمًا غَيْرَكُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَكُونُوا أَمْثَالَكُمْ. And if you turn away, Allah will bring other people and then they will not be like you. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَنْ يَرْتَدَّ مِنكُمْ عَنْ دِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِي اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ يُحِبُّهُمْ. Or you believe, whoever from you turn away from his deen, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring other people, He will love them, and they love Him. Having pride on the disbeliever, show humbleness to the believer, and they strive in the sake of Allah, and they don't feel the blame of any blamers. This is the great gift of Allah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ. So as being great gift, this is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's a difference between you saying, this is my right, or this is a gift. Big difference. When you say you're right, you're going to fight to have it because if you're right. When it says a gift, you're going to be the kindest possible to receive the gift. So the Iman is a gift. So you need to have a great relation with Allah to give you the gift. And based on this, how the life of a believer will be structured. Therefore here, we're saying, in the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the sins as a sunnah ilahiyya to be restricting or a wall to the answer of the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the answer to the dua that we make. This is a sunnah ilahiyya. So if, for example, someone will call, he doesn't have receiving dua, he will not continue making the same call, but he needs to cleanse himself to really help himself for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to listen to his dua. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make, look, in Surah Al-A'raf, ayah 96, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبُوا. And if the people of the town, they believed and show piety, we will have open on them the gates of the blessing of the heaven and the earth. Gates, abwab, blessing. So you see here, the receiving of the income, of the provision, is based on iman and taqwa. So this is sunnah ilahiyya. So if someone goes and he trusts and rely on his skills or rely on his strength and power, and he relies on his boss to pay him in the end of the month, so he will be like the greatest thing in his life become this boss. He's happy when the boss is happy with him. He's sad when the boss is sad with him. When the boss smiles to him in the morning, it's a great day. when he sent him a note like you didn't do a good job in the worst day, then you'll see all the impact on the whole family. Go back home, you know, the spouse, the children, they're going to suffer from this behavior of this person. Why? Because the boss is not happy. But the Muslim has one boss only, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because he will not lean or kneel or do anything to anyone. He will not lose his pride. He will not change the deen because of few dollars. But he is required to excel in his job. He will not, for example, stay lazy the whole day. When people they say you not do your work, Allah will provide. Say this is wrong. This is what we're going to study. But if you have to do your work, but when you do your work, the rizq is from Allah, not from your boss. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this sunnah, He said, the rizq will come to you and you be showered with His blessings, subhanAllah. Now we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you blessings is infinite and is a variety of blessings. But the problem, like the world of today, they make the only blessing is the money. Why? Because through the money, people they think they can get everything. But they cannot stop death, and they cannot stop aging, and they cannot cure themselves. So the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a gift that infinite, that you cannot count. You cannot count. You cannot count. And if you try to count the gift of Allah, you cannot count it. And this is, I recall a small story that many of you know, a story with Harun al-Rashid is being narrated. One of the scholars, he asked one of the scholars, give me maw'idah, give me a reminder. Told him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, if you want to eat and you are starving and you cannot swallow any type of food, you have all this food, but you cannot swallow it. That's it, you're sick, you cannot eat. What you will give in exchange to have the food, this bite go into your stomach. He reflected and he said, I will give half of my kingdom. Then the scholar continued, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, now that you ate it, but you cannot get it out. You cannot get it out. Stuck there. What you will give in exchange? He reflected and he said, I will give everything I have. He told him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, all the accumulation of the wealth you have is between swallowing a bite and getting out. That's the dunya. All what it costs is one bite, but this bite need after it give you satisfaction in your body, need to go out. So this gift that Allah, when you go eat and everything works fine, that's one of the greatest blessings. That's why every time you ask in Allah and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's a great blessing. The breath you take is a blessing. The sleep you have is a blessing. The health you have is a blessing. And all of it. The fact that you make sujood is a blessing. The fact that you walk is a blessing. The fact you read Quran is a great blessing. The fact that you know that Allah is your Allah is greatest of the blessings. And these are the blessings that are infinite and uncountable. That's what they give the life. That's what they give the spirit. That's what gives the real journey, how you live in your life. Because when someone is restricted with the couples of dollars that he wants to make them to be accumulated, to be a millionaire, what is going to help him in his life? He's going to dance, he's going to drink, he's going to do all this, and then he's going to be alone. He's going to be sad. He's going to be stressed. He's going to be this and this and this and this. But subhanAllah, the shaitan wants to make that the only way of happiness in that is not the way of the believer. And then here, فلا بد أن تمضي نواميس الله سبحانه وتعالى في حياة البشر لكي تستقيم الحياة وفق منهج الله. Therefore we have here a principle that we need to know, that the Sunnah of Allah must function according to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our conclusion. It is been doing that by the will of Allah. But for the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to function the way of Allah will, the Sunnah of Allah need to pass. So this is what helps us to have more yaqeen in planning our life according to the Sunnah of Allah. And the Sunnah of Allah, it's not a knowledge that is impossible to have. The Sunnah of Allah is in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah. We'll give some examples. And we mentioned last time Nuh alayhi salam. Did we mention the example of Nuh last time? Huh? طيب Nuh alayhi salam. Now let's have the Sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be, the judge here. Nuh alayhi salam, he made one dua. One dua. With one dua, the biggest change in the whole earth, in the history of the earth, happened in time of Noah. The land, this earth became like all covered with water. Not a land of soil, it becomes land of water. All of it. One dua. كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح كذبوا عبدنا وقالوا مجنون وازدجر فدعا ربه. Nuh alayhi salam, they refute him, they deny his message, they say he's crazy. فدعا ربه. He called, إني مغلوب فانتصر. إني مغلوب فانتصر. Okay. So how many words? Inni maghlubun fantasir. Ya Allah, I'm overcome. I cannot do anything. Fantasir. Send your help. Now look the answer of Allah. فَفَتَحْنَا. He made the call. The answer happened right away. One man. ففتحنا أبواب السماء بماء منهمر وفجرنا الأرض عيونا فالتقى الماء على أمر قد قدر وحملناه على ذات ألواح ودسر تجري بأعيننا جزاء لمن كان كفر. Nuh alayhi salam making this dua, the answer came that the whole sky became gates of water. So look, there's no clouds. If you read the ayah, there's no clouds. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, He didn't say, He said, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْمُعْصِرَاتِ مَاءً ثَجَّاجًا. Mu'sirati are the clouds. But here He said, we opened the gates of the heaven. Water comes. So this is water Rabbani. Nothing have to do with the Sunan al-Kawniyya. So this is not Sunnah Kawniyya. This is not the law, universal law. This is the Shari'i law. Because the water that came, nothing have to do with the process of the cycle of the heat and going like condensation and then the thing. It's not, nothing have to do with that. فَفَتَحْنَا أَبْوَابَ السَّمَاءِ. The gates of the water open. The gates of the heaven open. What the gates? Allah knows. بِمَاءٍ مُنْهَمِرٍ is like maybe imagine a shower 100 times. ماء منهمر. Like think it comes, subhanAllah, as things, I mean, can you imagine it is like a whole sea falling down. وَفَجَّرْنَا الْأَرْضَ عُيُونًا, and we explode the whole earth. The whole earth became one spring. الْأَرْض عُيُونًا. So is all the earth has water in it? You have like storage here and here. But this is وَفَجَّرْنَا, the whole earth became a spring of water. But when the water came at a level, that level is proportioned by Allah. Then when the son of Nuh alayhi salam called his son, he said, come with us. He قال سآوي إلى جبل يعصمني من الماء. I'm going to have a refuge on the top of a mountain. قال لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله. There's no one who can escape today from the order of Allah. It's not like a flood or rain or storm. No, this is something else. Because if you want to have a refuge of how mountain, that mountain will not allow you to be escaped. Why? Because the mountain is a servant of Allah, and the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came that no one will be saved except those who know on the ark. لا عاصم اليوم. There's none. So the Amr al-Qad Khudir, the water is above the mountains. Above the mountains. One dua, always come back, one dua. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to give you the image of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them. It's not the boat or the ark who saved Noah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, in these giant waves, how can we expect this boat or this ark to hold? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you this boat is made out of what? Wood and sticked with nails. Dati alwahim wa dusur. That's what it means. Some wood sticked with nails. To tell you that it was only container to Allah take care of them. Why? تجري بأعيننا. It runs with the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watching. Subhanallah. On the other hand, the shortest dua changed the whole earth. And today, how many Muslims do you have? How many Muslims?
1.7.
1.7 billion. How many dua in Laylatul Qadr in Ramadan they make? No, 1.7 million, huh? How many dua they make? طيب, why it wasn't accepted? How many tears? How many begging? Doesn't mean that we gotta stop to make the dua. But there's something. There's something not working. One man with the shortest dua changed the state of the earth, and 1.7 billion didn't change even 1 foot of the earth. Alhamdulillah, the masjid, alhamdulillah, we have the blessing of Allah. That this place belongs to Allah. You don't have any influence in it. وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ. But there is something. So where to find the solution? In the sunnah, if understanding the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In understanding the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore it comes to the sixth, I think, principle. To know that the destiny of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the decree of Allah, it only moves or changes only for the sake of the truth, and not for the sake of the people who carry the truth. This is a principle. Allah will change things because of His way not because of those who are following his way. This is a principle. Therefore, Allah will help you as long as you are following the truth. But you, if you carry the truth and you go on the side a tiniest bit from the truth, no help will come to you. No help will come to you. Therefore, you need to be 100% in the way of the truth for the help to come. But not because you carry the truth, you will receive the favor for Allah to change His sunnah for you. No. That's why the scholar derived from this one great principle. لا يعرف الحق بالرجال ولكن تعرف الرجال بالحق. You will not know or evaluate the truth by the greatest of the men or the people or the scholars, but you evaluate the greatness of people through the truth. And this is valid for everyone except for the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because he received the wahy, so he is the truth. Anybody else, he's loved as long as he speaks the truth. And not because he's great and known, whatever he said is followed. That's the beautiful saying, the meaning of the beautiful saying of Imam Malik. He said, everyone you can take from him and reject, except the one who's laying in this grave, the Prophet ﷺ. فَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ مُخْلِفَ وَعْدِهِ رُسُلَهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ ذُو انْتِقَامٍ. Don't think that Allah is going to not fulfill His promise to His messenger. Allah is the Almighty and the Avenger. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our situation, our state. If nothing happened in the problem in the sunnah or in us, the problem is in us. So there is no, someone to be genius to understand it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every dua mentioned in the Quran, every time He comes fa after it, fa. Fa is al-isti'jaliyya. When you call, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fastajaba. Fastajaba, it comes in the highest speed possible. وَأَيُّوبَ إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. When Ayyub called, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. وَذَنُّونِ. And then, إِذْ نَادَى فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ سُبْحَانَكَ إِنِّي كُنْتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. We answered. وَنُوحًا إِذْ نَادَى مِنْ قَبْلُ فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. So the jawab is not only for them, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ أُدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Allah said, call me, I'll answer you. So when you call and there is no answer, your call wasn't heard. Allah cannot hear your call. What it means? Allah is the all-hearing. But He's like the target. If the bow doesn't have the right string, when you shoot, the arrow gonna fall there. It's not gonna go. So nothing. When the inside is empty, the dua cannot be heard. The dua cannot be heard. You ask us something, it doesn't fit your condition. So you cannot be provided the thing. If you will be provided it, it's going to be dhulm. Someone has what he needs, from food, from everything. And he's begging, oh, I want this, I want this. He said, if I give you, it will be injustice, because there's someone in need, but you don't need it. Ask something that you need, that it goes with your state. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be an injustice. If Allah will help the ummah, well, they're not in the position to be helped, because they change anything inside themselves. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows us. And if He doesn't answer our dua, it's because of us. So 1.7 billion, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called them foam. It's not you, inshallah, but we say, when you take the whole group, it doesn't have that weight. Foam. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم قالوا أو من قلة نحن يا رسول الله قال لا بل أنتم يومئذ كثير. The Prophets, when the company, they were so shocked. How are we going to be defeated? How everyone is going to be around us? And how everyone is going to use us as they use their food? It's really a humiliation if you try to analyze the hadith of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. تتداعى عليكم الأمم كما تتداعى الأكلة على قصعتها. You know الأكلة? الأكلة, those who are so starving, waiting for their food, and as soon they put the dish, big container, everyone says, the food is here, this food. So they run and everyone take it, the fastest possible. Why? He doesn't want to keep being starving, so he has to fight for his portion. This is exactly this qasa in the Muslim. And the akala, the eater, are the rest of the more words, to not specify. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, why? He said, as because we are few in number, this is the only logic that the companion can have. قال بلى, no, بل يومئذ أنتم كثير, you're going to be in big number. 1.7 billion, that's a big number. Because how many the company they were in Hajjat al-Wada'? They were around maximum 120,000 in Hajjat al-Wada', or a little bit more. Compare, for example, in Ghazwat Badr there were 300. In Al-Hudaybiyah there were 1,200, and 10 times in Al-Fath. Today 1.7 billion, so big. Comparison, قال بل أنتم يومئذ كثير ولكن but غثاء كغثاء السيل, foam, like the foam you see on the top of the waves. The foam, when it comes to the shore, it pops, nothing stays. So it's the shape only. قال أصابهم الوهن, what their disease? Wahan, weakness. The companion, they understood what the meaning of wahan. But how can a believer be weak? Impossible. قالوا وما الوهن يا رسول الله? What weakness? What wahan? The Prophet ﷺ described a very beautiful word. He said, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا وَكَرَاهِيَةُ الْمَوْتِ. The love of the dunya and the hate of death. Easy, simple. So the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you apply here, when you bring back the nufus, the souls, every individual, to really come to the level to have the bargain with Allah, the oath with Allah signed up with truthfulness, the dua will be only one dua. What was the Prophet of the dua of the Prophet when he has a problem? إِذَا حَزَّهُ أَمْرٌ إذا حازه أمر في رواية, when he has something concerning him, what he will say? يا حي يا قيوم. That's it. يا حي يا قيوم. So you understand that in the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in the wording of the dua or in the quantity of the words you say, is in the strength and the structure of the building you have inside yourself. This is the sunnah of Allah. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the all just. مَاضٍ فِينَا حُكْمُهُ عَدَلٌ فِينَا قَضَاؤُهُ. Past is His decree on us, and just is His way of dealing with us, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He knows us. So the situation is not about what is around us, the situation is in us, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it. Therefore, the sunnah or the principle that comes after this, the ummah of Islam is not to be evaluated by the number of their members, but by the quality of iman in their hearts. Period. This is a principle of Fiqh of As-Sunnan. The ummah is not to be evaluated by the number of their members, each member, but by the quality of iman in their hearts. The more you empower the iman in your heart, the more you are closer for Allah to intervene for you. Therefore, the Sunnah is saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bounties to this ummah depends on the truthfulness, your truthfulness with the way of Allah. إِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ. What means tansurullah? If you give support, victory to the way of Allah, how you give? Allah, the nasr is from Allah. But if you stand for the way of Allah, if you stand and you give everything you have for the sake of Allah, and for establishing the truth, Allah will give you victory. And add more, وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ. طيب, if you have a question, we'll stop here. طيب, we'll finish only another principle. We finish the other principle. That the worship is a cause into the expiation and the forgiveness of the sins. This is a sunnah. And a sabab is what a condition for you to enter paradise. So when we say the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the condition to get His pleasure. So if you want the pleasure of Allah, you need to seek the right worship that Allah asks you for, then you can ask for forgiveness. Then you can ask for Jannah. So this is the sunnah of Allah. You cannot ask for Jannah when you didn't do anything. So see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make obligatory on you. Or someone, for example, never prayed and he come said, make dua for me for Allah to accept me to Jannah. I said, you're refusing yourself to go to Jannah. He said, how? He said, because you're not fulfilling the sunnah of Allah. You want to have an income, you work. You want to have the Jannah, you work. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ بِالَّتِي تُقَرِّبُكُمْ عِنْدَنَا زُلْفَى إِلَّا. It's not your money, your wealth, your children that make you to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except the one who believe, aman, wa amila salihah, and he will do good deeds. فَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ جَزَاءُ الضِّعْفِ. فأولئك لهم جزاء الضعف بما عملوا وهم في الغرفات آمنون. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the condition here. It's very clear condition. طيب. Inshallah we'll stop here. طيب we'll go question inshallah. 5 minutes. تفضل أخي.
Yeah, I have a good question about when you're saying our dua, 1.7 million. I mean, I'm just thinking about, for example, Palestine, for 60 years making dua for the Palestinians. I mean, for all those people maybe that are here, I'm pretty sure everyone has made dua for Palestine, but nothing has changed. So does that mean that all this time our
We've
dua...
been bad. That's the reality. Yes, all this time, unfortunately.
I mean, there cannot be like someone who...
But the Khilafah, the collapse of the Khilafah was in 1927. That's where Palestine was invaded, right? Do we have a Khilafah back since? This is one portion of the answer. Or if we say, for example, this is very important, the Sunnah need to be studied from first individual perspective and Jama'ah perspective. We cannot deny there's a lot of individuals in the Ummah are as pious and one of maybe great of Tabi'i. But as a group, they're not fulfilling. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, one, it's not one. The pillar and the core of the purity of the society is enjoying good and forbid evil. أمر بالمعروف ولا يعمل. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. You are the best of the nation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to present to all the nation. What their quality? يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر. They enjoy good and forbid evil. Where in the Muslim country they enjoy good and forbid evil? That's one quality only. So if the whole system gather the Muslim to build a system that its pillar will be enjoying good and forbid evil, if it doesn't happen, it will not any beginning of the Ummah will be wishing to have the dua be answered. Because there is no, maybe, when someone think of himself, of his family, of his brother around him, he knows that these people, he see them, he knows that they are sincere. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't deal with individual. That individual, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showered him with His blessing in his own field. But when we're talking about the empowerment of the Ummah, every individual of the Ummah need to be included in the whole system. And we say a system that will be built on the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we said one of the greatest quality or the pillar of the bringing the Ummah together is enjoying good and forbidding evil. Because the mischief in the society or in the Ummah, that's what block the dua. So if you want your dua to be accepted, and already we said this as a law of Allah, we need to cleanse the Ummah from the sins. When we cleanse the Ummah from the sins, it's like we clean the way for the dua to travel. But then bring the piety of the people of the Ummah to stand all together and make dua. And we gave the example last time of the Prophet ﷺ making dua in Ghazwat Badr. When he made the dua, when everybody is ready, is united on one strong believing with certainty in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we bring the heart of the people and a system based and structured on the way of Allah, then the guarantee of the answering of the dua will be fulfilled. So if we have our dua not accepted, so it's really a sign of we need to make a lot of work. Jazakumullah khairan. Dua. Allah. Who has a question?
Question in terms of the happiness, you said how to achieve the happiness.
No.
And would this be like the dunya and the akhirah? Like for example, the Prophet ﷺ in his life, he had a lot of calamities happen to him. His son Ibrahim, the boycott, Khadija, and the munafiqeens plotting against him. It would seem like that life, you know, the happiness in that life would, you know, what?
I mean, you have the question is very nice, good question. I mean, when you see the hardship of the Prophet ﷺ, can we talk about happiness? But this is here, led us to review and to redefine what the meaning of happiness. What is the meaning of happiness? And we will do it inshallah next time. I'll give you just part of the answer. The Prophet ﷺ قال وَكَانَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّالِحِ. The coolness of my eye, it was in the salah. So the whole happiness of the Prophet when he's in salah. Whatever happened after is like someone tickled. And then